Hello and welcome back, everybody. I've got some gardening tips for you today you're not going to want to miss. If you're planning on planting out any beans or peas in your garden this year, you're going to want to check this video out first. So check this out, guys. I got a bunch of climbing beans here that I saved off some of my vines last year. So over my many years of gardening, I've planted out my beans and my peas in every way imaginable. Direct seeding them, starting them in pots early, growing them in soil and sand, putting them out unprotected, protected, inoculating them, not inoculating them. And so this video today is a culmination of all those years experience. I'm going to share with you every tip that I can so that you have the greatest success growing peas and beans in your garden. And although it is a very easy crop to grow, there are some potential setbacks that can be quite frustrating. And by following these tips today, you are all but ensuring yourself an abundant harvest later down the road. So we recently planted out some snap peas that we started early in the greenhouse. Snap peas do prefer cooler climates, so if you can get an earlier start by starting those seeds indoors or in a greenhouse early, then that gives you the jump start on the season that's required to get the best harvest. Beans, on the other hand, are more heat tolerant. So we plant them a little bit later in the season. We want the soil to warm up to around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The warmer is good. And because we're still getting below freezing around here, I'm just going to actually get these beans started early in the greenhouse using some of my favorite techniques that are proven winners. Alright, so tip number one is to inoculate your peas and beans with some Rhizobium bacteria, also known as legume crop inoculant. A little goes a long way. You can add about a teaspoon to your average size seed packet. A little more, a little less, it's going to do you just fine. Then you want to add in some non-chlorinated water. So if you're using tap water, consider adding a little bit of vitamin C crystals in there. About 1/8 of a teaspoon to a 5-gallon bucket will effectively neutralize the chlorine and chloramines, as we do not want to kill the beneficial bacteria that we are inoculating these beans with. So after you got your beans soaking in some inoculated water, you're going to let it sit for an hour or two, up to 24 hours. And this step is so important not to be overlooked. And that's because by inoculating your beans and your peas, what you're doing is hoping to create a symbiotic relationship with the soil and the atmospheric nitrogen. What this is going to allow these plants to do is take that atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into usable nitrogen into the soil. It's going to create what's known as nitrogen root nodules on the roots of the host plant, in this case the beans and the peas. And those root nodules are going to help to feed the plant, keeping it more resilient, stronger, which is wonderful because a healthy, resilient plant is more capable of defending itself against some of the different diseases and pests that can take it out. And it is possible that you have some of the Rhizobium bacteria already in your landscape. Perhaps you've inoculated in the past and it's already present in your soil. That's great. But just to be on the safe side, I like to inoculate every year. It's very cheap and easy to do. And not only does it help you to grow more healthy, resilient plants, but it can actually help with germination rates as well. So there's really no reason not to do this. My second tip, if you are going to start your beans and peas early, is to actually begin to grow them out in some sand. And you want to make sure that it's been washed and screened. It will specify that on the package. And you can use any container. I just use these little oil pans that you can pick up at the dollar store, and I melted a few holes in there using a soldering iron Somebody had commented on a previous video that if you didn't have a soldering iron, you could use the tip of a hot glue gun to make the holes. I thought that was a cool idea. Now, what I usually do is place a little bit of window screen, actually 2 pieces crisscrossed over these holes before I put the sand in. That way it doesn't come rushing out the bottom like an hourglass. But I've got a new technique, and that is to use a little bit of this drywall tape. This is for taping the joints on your drywall. And it's sticky, so it sticks right down. Now obviously these holes are too big for sand, so we're just going to triple this up. Anyway, just another way to accomplish what we're aiming to do here. We'll just add our sand in our container here. And this works so well, so easy to separate the plants out. You get big, vigorous root development this way. And if you want to, you can reuse your sand again and again and again. You can also add this right into your garden. It can actually help a bit with drainage. Now I prefer to wear a glove when planting out my inoculated seed. This is a Rhizobium bacteria. And I'm just going to sprinkle that all along the surface here and just press them right into the soil. I'm not too worried about spacing. Another benefit to using sand, those roots just loosely twined together. You can easily pull the plants apart. So done, we will just add the rest of that inoculant water to our batch here. Push down those seeds. And Bob's your uncle. I'm just now going to share with you some footage of some snap peas I had growing in sand, planted out the same exact way. So I just dumped out the peas that we had growing in this container of sand, and we're planting these out. And this is a very easy way to go about this process. Just so easy to separate and get them in the garden. Now that we're planted out, next thing is to water it in. Now if we just leave these peas out like this, what's going to happen is we're going to come out tomorrow. They're going to be eaten down to the stem. I can guarantee it, because that's exactly what happened over here. We got a little bit too comfortable after our planting. It was getting dark and I decided, hey, I'll come out tomorrow and put down my floating row cover, which would have protected it from the birds. And that next morning, everything was eaten down to the stem. But if it's too late, and this has already happened to you as well, I'd encourage you to be proactive about covering it up and keep it watered. They should grow back. You can see most of these snap peas are sprouting up new shoots at the base and in the crook of each one of those side shoots. It's coming back. So we got this protected now, is what we should have done in the very beginning. So we're going to go ahead and cover this up now with the floating row cover. So that's one of the tips I want to share with you today when planting out peas and beans. You can get a jump start on the season by putting a floating row cover, because it'll help to protect your plants from frost. But it's also going to help protect them from birds. And once your plants get established, maybe they're a foot tall, then you don't have to worry about it as much. But at this early stage, these small shoots, they're very vulnerable. So consider investing in some floating row cover and applying it over your peas and beans and other small seedlings that you start growing in your garden. You can reuse the material year after year. If you don't leave it out for too long and you store it away properly, you can get many years of usage out of the material. And you can buy it in small packages or you can get it in bulk. I prefer to usually get most of my gardening materials in bulk, since I know I will use it eventually and I get the best deal that way. So we'll just roll out some of this material. And this roll is actually folded in half, so you get double the amount that you cut out. And there's a seam where it's folded over, and once you've got a cut going, you can then easily just pull it apart. And you can clip this off or just tie it off. And that's all there is to it. In just a second now, we protected these small pea sprouts from the birds, from inclement weather. If we get a cold snap come in, they're going to be protected there. Now additionally, if you are planting in the ground and you've got lots of organic material on your ground, such as wood chips or any chop and drop, chances are you're going to have some insects like wood lice, also known as roly-poly, or earwigs, which will come and also eat your plants to the stem. And for those issues, I like to just sprinkle a little bit of this granular Sluggo Plus. This is OMRI listed, made for organic gardening. It's safe to use around pets, and wildlife such as birds won't be harmed by it. In fact, birds love to eat this stuff, which is another reason this floating row cover is helpful. And you really don't need much. And to activate it, you do just want to moisten it a little bit. And by the way, water will go right through this material. But if you want to water more quickly and efficiently, I just lift up the cover. And now these young plants are protected from all of my concerns. And by the way, they call this a floating row cover because it's so lightweight that as a plant grows, if it presses up against the material, it'll just press it up. All right, so I'm going to knock out this side the same way. I guess I'll do it in reverse. Give it a little bit of the granular first. And there it is, both sides done. Takes all but a second. Helps to preserve the work that you've done thus far, and all but guarantees you're going to have yourself an abundant harvest. You can see over here on these hugel mounds where I have some cattle panels going over top as a trellis. I attached the floating row cover using these binder clips. That works well too. So those are my tips for growing your beans and your peas. Utilize all of them, utilize a few of the tips. Either way, I hope you have a great success growing out some of your favorite crops this year. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Have yourself a good rest of the day. Until next time, this is Dan from PlantAbundance.com. Take care. I'll be talking to you again soon.